Hey friends, Jill here. Welcome back to Whispering Willow Farm. I have been stinky and sweaty outside all day long. We have a heat advisory. What was the heat advisory for, babe?
100 and something.
It was like 100 and something. So it was me, Nathan. We've got a high school kid that's helping us 1 day a week during the summer, and then Sean was here, and it was like all hands on deck. We had so much stuff to harvest. So we harvested all of our carrots, all of our beets. We harvested cherry tomatoes, slicer tomatoes, cucumbers, okra, like the whole thing, all the things. And so I'm gonna show you kind of our spread and what I'm working on. I was actually in the kitchen chopping up cherry tomatoes, and I looked at Nate and I was like, why am I not filming this? This is great content to share with you guys what we're up to. But I know if you are a homesteader or a farmer, you know on those like all in, just like preserving days, it's easier just to kind of do it. But we're kind of prepping a lot of things because tomorrow is actually our canning day. I have an entire deep freeze from heirlooms that I grew last year at our old farm. So I'm gonna take those, thaw them out tonight, mix those with some of our cherry tomatoes and make diced tomatoes. Then we're gonna use the fresh slicers to make salsa. So we're gonna have salsa coming up tomorrow. And then we're freeze drying a whole bunch of stuff. So I'll take you over here, kind of show you what we're working with. All right, so I went and harvested some okra earlier. We're gonna freeze dry this. And then I had ones that, you know, just got way too big. One of the lovely things about living on a farm is that nothing's wasted. So this is now pig food. And so it was just like, you know, a long weekend, easy that it got missed. But these small ones right here are perfect. So Nate, you like freeze dried or dehydrated. You could do this if you don't have a freeze dryer. But essentially we're just popping them in the freeze dryer. Then when they come out is when we'll actually season them, right?
Yep.
And it's just like a perfect snack.
I think so. Yeah, just, I mean, lightly, almost like spritzing some good Squisitos olive oil and sea salt.
Oh yeah.
And
so,
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Nathan had his first tomato sandwich. It's got Gouda cheese.
Did you quit fingering my tomato sandwich?
How was it?
Amazing.
Amazing. We did a video on Instagram for Jesse Bickley and Willow Brick Homestead. Nathan's like, I gotta make my first tomato sandwich of the season and tell Jesse.
Did you tell him that I substituted, so I didn't have any bacon thawed out, but I had plenty of pork rinds, so I used pork rinds on there instead of bacon?
Yeah, so we go to the farmer's market, and this lady makes homemade pork rinds, and so Nathan was in heaven. So I harvested garlic, which I didn't plant a ton of garlic this year, was really behind, so that's just drying there. And then we have cherry tomatoes that I'm cutting up, and we're gonna pop those in the freeze dryer. And then over here by Nathan, we have some cucumbers, so I left some for fresh eating, but we're also gonna use this and then season it, and it'll be like cucumber chips. So we sent a lot home with Sean and Mel, but we're starting to harvest our Carmen peppers. These are sweet peppers. I did have the first few of my shishito, so I'm gonna be blistering these for lunch. So my friend Jessica over at Roots and Refuge introduced me to the shishito pepper and taught me how to properly eat them, and now I will forever grow the shishito on my farm, like a game changer. So there's just these cute little peppers you guys can see here. So we're just now starting to get these, so I only had a handful, which is perfect. But you take some butter, you throw it in a cast iron skillet, you take a knife and you just slit around it and you blister them. And so really, like, no seasoning, really nothing like that. I mean, you could add some salt or something, but the butter is what really just kind of soaks into the pepper. But the game changer is the dipping sauce. So just based off of my like remembering, Nathan, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like mayonnaise, lemon juice, like smoked paprika, and she makes this dipping sauce.
Yeah.
Y'all, let me tell you, once you've had this, for me, this is what the tomato is for everybody, right? Everybody loves that like juicy tomato. You guys know that's like not how I roll, but it's like the shishito pepper dipped in that sauce. That is what reminds me of like the summer garden in a major way. All right, so we had those. We gave our friends a bunch of these Carmen peppers because we had like such a massive prep for the tomatoes, and the peppers are really just now starting. Over here we still have all of our ferment. So this was our fermented pickle. So we have 2 half-gallon jars, and then we have 4 of these little smaller jars. I'll link the fermenting kit because I know we've been getting a lot of questions about that. So I sent a bunch of cucumbers home with a friend. I'm making the cucumber chips. I'll do a couple rounds of those, but then we just had these smaller ones for like fresh eating, and that'll be enough to like last us for the week. And here we have hit the mother load. So I had another crate this big that we sent home with our friends. So we've got decent slicers in here. This is the Rebelski. It's a hybrid variety. And then these cherry tomatoes are insane. This is the Sakura from Johnny's. It's also a hybrid. Underneath there are some more slicers if you dig. But gosh, like this, babe, this is summertime, right?
This is summertime.
Like, I feel like it hasn't really hit me that it's summertime. And I even...
What did you say earlier?
I was kind of like in crazy town earlier. So Sean was over here, Aiden was over here, like everyone's all hand on deck, and I had this massive moment of like, I'm not growing enough food. I don't know what I did, what possessed me to want to be a flower farmer, but like, I'm not growing any food. And so I had a moment, and Nathan and Sean looked at me and they were like, Jill, like you are growing plenty of food, like walk out into your high tunnel. And so we start harvesting, and I literally spent like hours harvesting. There was so much. And then I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I am growing food. This is gonna be okay. And this is just our first wave. So we are gonna do a fall planting of tomatoes, which will be all of our paste tomatoes. So like I mentioned, this will be diced tomatoes. This will be salsa. And then our next wave that we're starting the seeds for in a couple weeks, that'll be our ketchups, our tomato paste, our tomato sauce. And I really prefer to do that because I can kind of stagger having to preserve it. And then we are still taking a lot of the reserves from last year. And if you do grow heirlooms and hybrids, or even if you just grow a wide array of heirloom tomatoes, nothing is better than diced tomatoes that are all these different powerful, in-your-face heirloom flavors. One of my favorite things is making homemade chili in the wintertime, and I'm telling you, there's just something about all those flavors. As soon as you pop the can open, it smells like summertime, it tastes like summertime. There's fruity, there's acidic, like it's so good. It marries so well with all the different chili spices and the beans. I don't know, I mean, I could probably have chili right now. It sounds so well. So I am glad that we're kind of doing this in different stages and successions. That way I'm not completely overwhelmed with the harvest. And then you guys remember, I think it was the last vlog, I had started working on harvesting carrots and beets. So I ended up doing that, putting them in the bread bag. We did get all of those harvested. We got them put in the bags. They are stored in the outside refrigerator, and they will be good for like 6 to 9 months. So I'm gonna finish chopping these up to put it in the freeze dryer. Now with our cucumbers, those we're not planning on like preserving. Those will just probably, like we are, freeze drying is obviously a way to preserve them. But the idea of the cucumbers is just to have a snack. So we'll probably keep those in like a massive mason jar and just fresh for eating. Now these cherry tomatoes, I am cutting up them because if I was to freeze dry these whole, they would need to be frozen beforehand, and then it would just take forever. So with anything that you're freeze drying, if you freeze it beforehand, especially if it's some sort of liquid, it's gonna freeze dry faster. And then if you cut it up into smaller pieces, it's gonna do a lot better too. And since I'm putting this in with the okra, I want them to kind of be done around the same time. So I'm cutting these up small, and then we will probably store these in Mylar bags, and we'll throw these in to different soups and things like that throughout the fall and the winter. So when it comes to canning, there are a few things I recommend. I have been canning since I was a kid. I have the most vivid memories with both of my papaws, actually, of canning. I remember on my mom's side, they did a lot of tomatoes, and I remember, you know, there would be the propane a whole setup outside, and that's all we would do for days and days, was just canning tomatoes. And then on my dad's side, he had just these rows and rows of like grapes and blueberries and just like everything you could ever dream of. And so we would make a lot of jellies, and I remember being in the kitchen with my Memo, and I wanted to always be a chef growing up. Nathan and I laugh about it now because he's like, babe, like what happened? I'm the cook in the family, like you wanted to be a chef. But I had my own apron, I had my own little chef's hat, and my apron had my name in it, and my Memo would let me just pretend like I was on a TV show cooking when we were like canning and doing stuff in the kitchen. And I just have such vivid memories. Like when I think of my childhood, that's immediately what I think of. I actually talk about this a lot in my book. I feel like my book was just kind of, it's a lot of me that you guys don't get to see. It's a lot of like my upbringing and what really inspired me and motivated me as a young kid. And it's a lot about my Mama and Papa. And it makes me just miss them so much, which my Papa's still with us. I think you guys might remember I went and visited him not too long ago, and he gave me a bunch of heirloom seeds, and that was really fun to be able to plant those in the garden. They're out in the raised bed garden. But a few things I recommend when it comes to canning is, one, have a plan. So today we have a plan of what this is gonna look like for tomorrow. And part of that plan is having people. So if you are working with produce that you have saved from the previous year, you're gonna wanna get that out. So we have a lot of tomatoes that I just like split the end of them and then threw them in a plastic bag. So I will need to make sure that I get all that out tonight. It's all thawed out. And then it's always good to make sure you've got all your canning supplies on hand, depending on how it is that you choose, to preserve. But you either have your pressure canner, you make sure you have all of your salt, you make sure you have all of your ingredients. So like we are doing salsa tomorrow. I don't actually grow cilantro. We just have a really hard time here in our growing zone, which is 7B. It just bolts so quickly. So I know that I need to go to the store today and pick up cilantro for our salsa. We don't have jalapenos, but we have some other hot peppers, so that's gonna work. I'm just gonna use what we're growing on our farm. But I do wanna make sure that I have all of the appropriate things that I need. That way when I get started tomorrow, I don't have to stop, make a trip to the store, especially if you live in the boonies, you guys. This is important. The last farm that we lived at was an hour away from a grocery store, so there was no just like making a quick trip to go get something if you forgot it. So we're kind of like evaluating. Today we have to take the girls to gymnastics later. We're gonna pick up the cilantro, some of the other things we need, make sure all of our canning jars are sterilized, so we'll throw them in the dishwasher tonight and put them on a rinse, and just really start cranking out. And one thing Nathan and I really, really love doing is we love having a team of people with us. For us, that really is like, when I think about community, I think about this right here, right? Like I think about pouring into you guys and you guys doing the same for me. I think about farm to table dinners. I think about picking up that phone call when the friend calls who's having a hard time as a homesteader or a farmer, and just encouraging them. I think about having friends and family at my house in the dead of summer and just preserving, and it's just eating, and it just is like, it's just, that is what I think of when I think of community. And so usually we do this with our friends. We do this in the winter in a large way with all of our ferments. We have our friends come over. They actually stay the entire weekend with us. We just ferment, and it's amazing. So for tomatoes and all of this, we are going to invite Nathan's mom over. One, because we haven't seen her in a while, but two, she does a garden in a large way. She's been canning for lots of years. And Nathan was talking, he's like, I've never canned with my mother. I was like, what? Like, you've never canned with your mom? And so it's something he really wanted to do. And you don't have to make memories just as a child. You get to make those memories as adult, and you get to make those memories with your children. And so for me, I thought that would be really sweet. So we're gonna have his mom come over. We're gonna let Charlie in the kitchen. We're gonna put her in a little apron, and we're gonna let her make those memories that I vividly remember having with my grandparents growing up. And it's gonna be such a sweet time. It put me in such a good mood. I think because this year we did do a massive shift to flowers, I didn't realize how much I would miss growing vegetables. Now, I did just show you guys a table full, and you're like, Jill, you're growing so many vegetables, and I am. But in comparison to what I usually do, and I just have a food garden, it's been a different shift. And so I am excited to tell you guys that we are going to continue doing dahlias, continue to do sunflowers in a massive way, you know, still have our pollinator patches and everything like that. But moving into the fall, like next week, we will start planting all of our fall crops and our fall rotations, and it is going to be nothing but food production. So we'll still continue with the sunnies. Like I said, our dahlias are just now starting to bloom. They're beautiful, but we're shifting back to food production, food preservation, and so I'm excited to kind of just shift back into that and really just teach you guys, because it really is so valuable to learn how to can your food, to learn how to preserve your food, to learn how to eat your food. It's just a valuable tool that I think we will all be happy that we have in our tool belt. All right, we've got 2 trays done of the cherry tomatoes. So the great thing, like I had mentioned, these are gonna probably go between the pigs, the goats, and the chickens. If you do not have animals on your homestead, don't fret. You can take all of this and just compost it. That still, though, did not quite make a dent. This whole thing, primarily, at least half of this is cherry tomatoes. So I'm gonna be using these with my heirlooms from last year to make the diced tomatoes. And then we're gonna use the big slicers to make the salsa. What you think, Woodrow?
I'm cooling off.
You're cooling
But I'm
off?
super excited.
Like so much food, yeah?
I can tell you this, the last time I remember hauling that many tomatoes was at our old place.
When June was a baby.
When June was a baby, and we had like 70 something tomato plants.
And we had several tomato customers. We were selling to like three
restaurants. And then our gym was buying several people at the gym. But yeah, we would harvest 5-gallon buckets of tomatoes a day.
Yeah. So like Nate had mentioned, if you're new around here, hi, welcome.
Hello.
We used to sell our produce to restaurants. We did like a CSA type situation with our CrossFit gym. And so yeah, that was when June, I had just birthed June, and we were like that next week making deliveries of tomatoes. And we just had buckets and buckets. I remember we grew a cherry tomato that one chef wanted, and it was the Berry's Crazy Cherries. And they grow in these clusters, and they are the sweetest. They're like really these oblong. We should grow those again. They grow like, yeah, so it's like these bushy clusters, and you can just like prune off like these massive clusters. And they, once you get them when they're actually like in their prime, they're so sweet. It's like really the best flavor ever. And we literally would just harvest 5-gallon buckets at a time and take to this restaurant. And they loved it for their salads, their seasonal salads.
It's pretty big.
That's massive. These tomatoes are massive.
I'm excited about round 2 though. Have you already told them about that?
Kind of, yeah. So our Grand Marshalls will be going in next. That'll be in different paste tomatoes. They will be hybrids.
The Grand Marshalls make the most beautiful, uniform, perfect tomatoes. They almost look like apples. They're so perfect.
They do.
But they're high producers. So
they are. Which I've been really impressed. This is my first time growing the Rebelski and the Sakura, actually.
Yeah, they're both impressive.
They're great. I do think these are good things to take note of if you're wanting to switch to more intensive gardening and high production. Hybrid is going to be the way to go. But I can tell you that even though I'm not munching down on a large slice or anything, I do like cherry tomatoes in things, on salads, things like that. And I am missing my Berry's Crazy Cherries, my blueberry cherries. There was one that we grew that was a tomato red fig, and you actually grew it to make jam. That's traditionally why it was grown. And it was super sweet. So I'm missing color is what
was that called? The something red fig?
It's the tomato red fig.
Tomato red fig, yeah.
And people would preserve it like they would figs. They'd make like tomato preserves. But I'm just missing color, that's all. Missing a little color.
Can I just say that biting into a juicy, ripe slicer tomato
is good.
Is wonderful.
You should do it.
And the juice dripping down your chin, like, you don't like that?
No. I'm feeling pretty impressed, babe. I don't know how you're feeling, but I feel like I needed this gardening win. especially just in the thick of the season that I'm in right now. So to look at my table just full of produce fills me up.
I'm about to text message somebody because they had to eat this juicy right red tomato, and I think you guys should encourage her to eat a juicy right.
I already have a freeze dryer. Isn't that what Jeremiah did to get Jess the freeze dryer?
I have no idea.
I think that was the deal. I have a freeze dryer. You guys, my heart's very content with everything I have on my farm. Did he ever do that?
I don't remember. We're bad. We don't watch much
Oh,
YouTube. So.
gosh. All right, you guys. This is our massive food haul. The biggest food haul, tomato-wise, we've done in years. So that feels so good. Stay encouraged, you guys. I know it's hot. We've not had rain in 30 days. We're in a drought, and our well went out.
Our well, yeah. We got somebody here working on it right now.
We have someone working on our well right now. So trust me, I feel you having to... I literally have like 10 water hoses connected right now to make sure that animals are staying hydrated and that the garden is not dying. So I feel you. I understand the heaviness of the summer, the hustle and bustle. And this man doesn't. He's over here munching on cherry tomatoes. Yeah, but I understand that this time of year can be hectic, but no, it is just the season. And you're going to be so thankful in the wintertime when you have all this food canned and preserved and freeze-dried and dehydrated, and however you choose to preserve your food. Your winter self is going to thank your summer self for all the work you've put in. But thanks for hanging out with me today. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Thanks.